just driving true consolidation in softwares is going to be hard.
Guest experience, I think that's an interesting one.
After you go through all these challenges, you need somebody to help you to deal with that as well.
I don't know too many people that actually think about that or promote that in their business. I think they should.
This is gossip category now.
So let's get cut to the chase here.
Are you going to give us the API?
This is a live matchmaking session.
You guys played that very well together, not even scripted. You are listening to STR Global Unlocked, brought to you by AGL Atelier, the show where I speak with the leaders shaping short-term rentals worldwide. I am Simon Lehmann, and after 2 decades buying, selling, advising, and investing, I've built a network that spans continents and categories. This podcast brings that network to you. Real conversations, global insight, no PR fluff. Let's get started. 2 pillars every operator fights with: revenue and operations. Today we put the leaders of both on the same mic to ask what is broken, what's working, and what the next operating system of short-term rental looks like. With me today, Jeremy Gall, founder and CEO of Breezeway, the category-defining operations platforms used by leading PMCs around the world. And Richie Khandelwal, co-founder and CEO of PriceLabs, the world's largest revenue management system in the short-term rentals. Welcome, gentlemen, to STR Global Unlocked.
Thank you so much for having us. Excited about that.
Thanks, Simon.
It's a great pleasure. Great to have you both. Richie currently in India and Jeremy out of Boston. And hopefully we see you both very soon at the VRMA as well. So let us get kicked off here straight away. This isn't a feature tour today. It's the uncomfortable conversation operators want us to have. Can revenue and ops actually work as one system? What should the future STR tech stack look like? And who is falling behind? So gentlemen, we have a lot to cover here. And I want to kick this off between you. You covered the 2 most important categories within the PMC tech stack. Why did revenue management and operations become a non-negotiable? What changed in the last 3 years? So I want to kick this off with Jeremy, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me. Great to see you, Richie. I think timing has a lot to do with it, right? I think there's been this continued professionalization in short-term rentals, and the baseline for how you run your business and how you deliver value to owners and guests has continued to go up, which has pushed people to optimize these parts of their business, right? And so you're under a lot of pressure to optimize the amount of revenue you deliver to owners, which is why RMS systems and how you price and being able to price as intelligently as possible becomes really important. And as part of delivering that revenue, you've got to be really good about how you operate, and you have to optimize that. You've got to grab the steering wheel, and you've got to drive. And I think you've got to drive some operational efficiency. So I think it's timing in the market that has made these kind of non-negotiable, but curious how Richie sees it.
No, 100%, right? Like I think for any company, you're trying to optimize 2 things. You're trying to maximize your revenue and you're trying to control your costs. And so RMS is your top line, and operations automation is basically how do you protect your bottom line, right? Not something new, something that has existed, like any business operates this way, right? But I think with complexities that are coming into the market, with professionalization, with how fragmented short-term rental world is, with every home is unique, so you need to price it differently, but every home is also spread out, so you need to run operations in a fundamentally different way. And that has created a need for both RMS and an ops platform in this industry, because just fundamentally very, very different how you'd imagine a hotel industry to have both RMS and ops versus a short-term rental industry.
That's amazing. just going a little bit deeper on that one, Richie, when we look at the evolution, I mean, PriceLabs has been at it for a while, and so did Breezeway in terms of adoption rate and looking at the industry as a whole. I think we would both, or all of us would agree that the fundamentals of the short-term rental industry is not going to change in relation to fragmentation and being a hyper-local business, right? So, or is that something you would like to debate here, or do you believe in the fragmentation going to be the same going forward?
I think my view is it's going to be a fragmented industry, right? Like you can't change that. You have individual homes that you're ultimately trying to run, manage, and there is some level of scale that you can achieve, but maybe there is diminishing law of returns after a certain amount of scale, and we've seen some of that play out in the past, right?
Jeremy, what is your observation, especially with your platform?
Interesting cyclical consolidation at the top that takes on different models. I think you're seeing that with Costco and Vacasa. It's a super interesting dynamic. I think you're also seeing a new wave of how people are approaching the franchise model for vacation rentals. So you're seeing some interesting consolidation at the top, but at the same time, you're seeing dramatic fragmentation at the bottom, right? You've got so many people started with one accidental kind of hosts, operators, growing into larger businesses. It's the barrier to start a property management company is pretty small once you get going. And so I think it's just going to be this cyclical, plenty of fragmentation. It's not going to change for a while. It's a hyper-local business. And it always will be.
Excellent. I'm so happy you're saying that. And it's reassuring me as well. I get asked this question all the time, every day. As well. But let's talk about adoption for a second. I mean, we can be the bad devil's advocate and say, okay, if you look at the total listings that are out there and what a PriceLabs or a Breezeway roughly cover, I mean, you're less than 3% of total market. So, is that going to increase? Is that going to change in terms of adoption rate? Or where do you see that heading? Richie, maybe you want to go first on that one.
For sure. I think one thing that we don't realize is that the digital world is only maybe 20-25 years old. And even at that, the short-term rental being digital is maybe another 15 years old, right? So it's not all that much. And it's not like at 15 years ago, everyone just went digital at one go. People took several decades, like several years. And even now, I know several operators that are not fully online, right? That operate offline. So with that, as people are coming more and more online, as the acceptance of using tech is increasing, we think the adoption will increase. You're right, Simon, in saying that we're maybe 3%, 5% of the market overall. But then if you start to look at it in pockets of saying, let's say maybe just look at US only, or maybe look at certain specific regions within US only, then you start to seeing adoption numbers that look different and higher in the ranges of 10 to 30%. And so that's where it starts to make meaningful sense of saying, how do I take that model and then extrapolate it around the world with similar trends, and so that's where we'd expect, right, somewhere between 10 to 30% adoption in the long run across markets.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great, a great analysis as well, and I would definitely support that. Well, I would potentially disagree that we've shared caves with each other in the Stone Ages. This is already sharing economy that has been a long way around with us before people like Airbnb came in. Jeremy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the timeline, maybe we squabble a little here and there. I remember it's probably just about 15 years ago, Simon, where I met someone who's running Interhome. And we started talking about online booking and the beginning of online booking platforms. But I think that's actually a pretty important milestone to think about, right? Imagine the world 15 years ago where there weren't online bookings. And so you really had so much control. This is very different, and it actually affected operations and pricing, right? You had to do all your pricing the year before, send out your catalogs, fix fix your pricing. Your pricing was fixed
Some people still
on
do
whatever
that, Jeremy.
website.
Some people still do
Is
that.
totally it was totally fixed for the whole season. You couldn't change it. And then you also had all your bookings, right? You were waiting, the checks were in. You were kind of booked, so you could figure out how many people do I need for this season. I'm checking out my operations. I know all my I know vast majority of my check-ins and check-outs and how my properties are going to be utilized for the whole season well ahead. And you start to think about then all of a sudden there's online booking. Then all of a sudden that's forcing you to change your booking windows. You're not booking Saturday to Saturday. You're thinking about how to fill in smaller bookings. You're now allowing people to extend their stay. You're changing the dynamic around how you price, and you're vastly changing the dynamic around how you operate. And that really started to change and pick up speed 15 years ago. And it took a little time, and to Richie's point, still taking time for some of that to take hold. But now you can see how that engine starts to run and forces this optimization for these parts of your business.
I'd love to quickly throw in an anecdote here. It's not 15 years ago when I was backing a very large private equity firm based out of London to buy Wyndham Vacation Rental Europe. That's actually 2018, 7 years ago. And we had the first management meeting with the former management team at Novasol in London with all the lawyers and the bankers around. And then there was the CEO from the time at Novasol. And the first question was, do you have dynamic pricing? And he said, yes, of course we do. We change our prices once a year. So that was dynamic pricing, right? Because they printed catalogs, tons of it. So that's what they called dynamic pricing. They changed their prices once a year because a lot of it was static. And so we've come a very long way to that point, Jeremy, and I totally agree. And I think you threw in some very valid points here in how this operation and pricing is becoming a lot closer now all of a sudden, because that's exactly how you need to think about in these efficiencies, fill the gap nights, the gap weeks, and everything like that. And, when I joined Interhome in 2005, 100% of the inventory was Saturday to Saturday. So we've came a long way since then, but it just shows that we're still working very hard in the adoption to Richie's point as well. And therefore, market opportunities for platforms like yours are still more than intact to grab more market share. Let's change the gear a little bit. We talked about consolidation on the PMC side, and I think we all totally agree in terms of the analysis of saying that this industry remains hyper-local. It remains hyper-fragmented. We've seen some consolidation on the top. I always say, welcome to the mushroom business. As the top consolidates, new mushrooms will grow at the bottom, right? So I think this really, and I bring that as the same example all the time. If you look at the 5 largest operators in Europe, they have less than 1.8% market share combined, right? And they've been around since 1960, and some of them even older. But let's move the focus on the technology side of things. And I think we would all agree that consolidation is definitely taking shape right now in the technology landscape. And we're not as far as in the personal computing side, where we have a Microsoft or a Google OS and an Apple. We're still obviously a lot more fragmented. But if you could think about which core categories in the STR tech landscape are going to consolidate the quickest? Or is fragmentation going to be permanently reality also on the technology side?
Jeremy, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go. Thanks, Richie. I'll take the softball. Appreciate it. I think I think consolidation makes a lot of sense on the technology landscape as well. I think we've seen a lot of it on the PMS side. But oddly enough, it does really follow the industry. It's very similar to what you've seen on the PMS side, right? I mean, on the property manager side, which is like there's consolidation among PMS systems, and yet there are still new ones. There are new PMS companies that are still being born and coming into the market. Not as many as before, but there are still new ones. And so I think we will still see some fragmentation. We won't see a world. I do not believe we'll see a world where there is one PMS to rule them all. I think there will still be some consolidation, and there'll be a few. Maybe you're down to 6 large ones, but don't forget, then there's plenty of regional opportunities, right? Like there's very country specific PMS systems throughout the world that have really interesting market share, and it's going to be tough to roll all those up as well. So I think PMS, you see fragmentation, and I think guest experience. I think that's an interesting one. I think guest experience will evolve, and I think there'll be some consolidation there as well. I think you have to deliver a little bit more value to customers, and property managers are looking for their technology to be a little simpler. They're happy to use 4 or 5 systems, maybe even 8, but they don't want to use 14. It's just too much of a burden on their business. So I think you'll see some consolidation there.
Do property managers use 14 systems? I'm just curious. I have no research on this. Maybe Simon does.
We've seen a lot of surveys, and also by Transparent at the time, Pierre did a lot of surveys as well in the space, and any other. And, so the number that goes around is anything between 6 and 7 platforms, which sort of excludes what you use on a daily basis on your PC, of course.
Oh, of course. Yeah. 6 to 7 is not that bad. I would say maybe there are 5 core categories that continue to stay now if they combine or not, but you will always have a property management system or your central system of record, so to speak, right? Then you add on a distribution layer. Now, distribution layer is more and more merging within property management system itself, right? Then you have guest experience, like Jeremy talked about, right? I think you continue to have operations as a layer, and then you continue to have revenue as a layer, right? I think players may change. There may be some consolidation and then some fragmentation again over time, right? But I like these functions are so fundamental to operations of a business, right? That you can't take it away. And the uniqueness of this market is it is so fragmented at the end user level, right? You have all of these owners that are doing their own thing. You have property managers, and then, like Jeremy said, you have franchisees. But you had very large property management companies that are now breaking down and becoming franchisees with local operations, right? Because of the number of market participants that you have, and it's ridiculous, right? Like somewhere like our estimates are like there are like 5 million independent buyers, right, of software. Of course, with all ranges, right? 1 property to 10,000 properties or whatever, maybe 50,000 properties, right? But because you have that much fragmentation in that end market, like just driving true consolidation in softwares is going to be hard. And then when you start to layer on, like Jeremy said, just the diversity of different markets have different regulations. There are so many operator models that keep coming in and going out. There are things that purely from a compliance standpoint that you're required to do, etc. Right? And then just regional nature of it. All of that, I think there is some level of consolidation that happens, right? But industry continues to stay fragmented, and those 5 core things don't go away. Some get merged. Some after a while maybe also get fragmented again.
Yeah, I think we have also a different market environment. Sorry, Jeremy, just to throw in that on Richie as well. I think one thing that we have definitely seen speeding up the way the market is structured is also we've seen more larger capital investors coming into the space, and they clearly don't want to invest into a fragmented market space. Their value creation plan consists of 25,000 add-ons and acquisitions and putting things together. And I think that's something, with maybe one exception, like in Habit IQ, we have not seen that at a larger scale to say, hey, we can build a technology platform through a roll-up, and that is being powered by growth private equity or private equity firms. And I think now, as the businesses become more sizable, the appetite for these type of Ps have clearly increased. We've seen the recapitalization of Hostaway. Obviously, we've seen the fundraiser Guesty as well. So we've seen large chunks of capital coming into the tech space, which we have not seen before at all. And I think that will also have an impact on how we look at that consolidation piece as well. Jeremy, you wanted to jump in on something here.
I did, yeah. I wanted to jump in on that 14. I just think, listen to this as you think through the vendor network. Listen to this list, right? So it's like the PMS, operation software, revenue, that's 3, right? Data, locks, your website, your guest book, your messaging, a separate accounting system, your CRM for marketing, how you're doing supplies, whether or not you're offering experiences and upsells, an internal BI tool, people who sell owner management solutions, like owner acquisition solutions, and then your separate payments platform if you don't do that through something else. That's 16 different sort of categories, and it's a lot for people to sift through. And I think there's just a tremendous amount of noise and sort of exhaustion from the property manager community about like, how do I figure out who offers the solution for one of these 16 things that I do, and where do I get it, and how do I make it work well across this I have a complicated business, and now I have to navigate this complicated like vendor technology landscape to figure out how to run my business effectively.
But for that point, you've missed the 15th point, and that's your AI-driven psychologist, because after you go through all these challenges, you just need somebody to help you to deal with that as well. And this is a very fair point, and I totally agree with you. And that's why a lot of these point solutions can be integrated in larger platforms. And I think I would go back to Richie and say there are certain specific layers that will stay that way, and then other layers will be entirely disintermediated, because AI has driven so many startups that will just either end up in a larger solution or go out of business again. So I think, Richie, you want to share your thought on that?
I completely agree, right? Like as Jeremy was saying that 16 list, I was in my head imagining like some of those should ideally be consolidated into one, right? Where there's too much noise, right? And to Simon, to your point, right? Like those will be consolidated, especially as money comes in, right? But some of the categories in this space require specialization, and I think that's where it becomes a little bit harder, right? Because you have to go into depth. And again, you're talking about like a very large market here, right? That's the other thing that people don't realize, right? Because sometimes we tend to look at it from the lens of US professional vacation rental owners, or Europe professional vacation rental owners, or some other geo vacation rental owners, right? It's just such a large market. Again, I say 5 million potential buyers out there of software, right? It's a really big end market to sell into, and which is why while I think the 16 that Jeremy quoted will possibly come down to maybe 6 or 7 or whatever that number is. But the need for specialization across some of the categories, purely because how different they are, right? I think will continue to stay.
Yeah, excellent. So I think we've all have a common understanding, and we're on the same track in relation to what is really needed. Before we move on, one last question on that topic as well. Which category do you think is totally over-indexed on? Like, what is getting too much attention?
This is gossip category now.
Okay.
Difficult. Revenue management. Yeah.
No, I mean, let me give you a bit of a segue here, Richie, as well. I mean, I remember the days when everybody talked about IoT. IoT was everywhere, right? And now it's like, okay, or maybe another category, which I would love to have your view on, is like blockchain and Web3, and having blockchain technologies and also obviously digital currency. Is that something that is overhyped or over-indexed?
Don't know. I think over time, some of those become so fundamental backbone. Like, for example, IoT, yes, that used to be an independent word that you'd say, but now I feel like it's just backbone into so many things, right? So many people have their homes connected to Alexa or Google Home or whatever else, where you just don't even think about it two times. That's actually internet operated technology, right? And your digital locks that get you in or out, and you get a digital code. So I think it becomes just like base level fundamental tech that just merges into everything else that we do. And so similarly with blockchain, I don't know, like we don't have a lot of use case for it. I don't know if Jeremy does, but for sure, like if you're accounting, I do see there is world in that, right? And then cryptocurrency, I wish I had invested in it 15 years ago, along with PriceLabs. That would have been a great outcome, right? But I like I feel like so much money in it that it's here to stay on the cryptocurrency side.
Jeremy, anything on your side that is overhyped?
I think AI is a really interesting one. I don't think it's overhyped. I don't think like the impact and the significance of the technology and what the effect it will have on the hospitality industry, that is not overhyped. Like that is a real dynamic. The idea about the impact that it's having today and some of the applications, I think overhype their impact on what they're doing. But it will continue to grow and it will have more of an impact. But I would say I think that could be a little overhyped. I think people are like so focused on it because they know it's going to have such a tremendous change to their business, but it's not there yet. So you have to pay attention. But the hype and the impact now, I think, depends on the application. I think it's just really interesting. I think cryptocurrency, that's just like, are you going to take credit cards? It's just a form of payment, right? So like, do you think more people are going to pay? 10 years ago, did you think everybody was going to pay with check and then eventually you have to take credit cards? Sure. 10 years from now, will you want to make sure that whatever your payment processor allows you to take lots of different cryptocurrencies? It's probably a good idea. And if you're using one that doesn't, that just probably won't make any sense. And I think the IoT devices, I almost think, I feel like it's like climate change. I feel like it was just like branded wrong and we expected something else to happen. And we expected this like magic instead of just kind of leaning into like, hey, this is going to be really interesting. I actually think the industry is missing an opportunity for really leaning a little further into IoT technology and how like we're so focused on locks, which is great and it's important, but we could be doing a lot for owners as far as like energy management and helping them understand how being your asset manager and constantly paying attention to your house that's 1,000 miles away from you is really a value add to you from an energy management perspective. And I don't know too many people that actually think about that or promote that in their business, and I think they should.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And then a great segue as well into our next topic to talk about and talk about digitization and talk about these type of technologies and see how people are still sort of reluctant also in relation to adoption. One small background story, we just had a referendum in Switzerland about introducing digital ID cards. And as you know, in Switzerland, we go to the polls literally every second month, and we have referendums. We have a pure democracy in Switzerland, which we're proud of. And it was interesting to see the result of do we want an EID, digital identification card, or not? The vote was 50.4% against 49.6%. So we had 54% of the population said, yes, we need an EID. So we don't need have it physically all the time when we need documents, legal documents, government, whatever. And 49.6% said no. So it's interesting to see how this is now evolving in a digitized world where people are now thinking about their own GDPR and what do I own as data and what do I pass along. And I think that's something we can think about in a more larger scheme of things as well. What does that mean to our industry and how does that affect adoption of technology and evolution of technology as well. And I think I would agree with Jeremy on the AI piece as well. You can call that totally overhyped, but it's not. And we will see how this, at the end, in simple terms, going to flush out, because we see a lot of nonsense that will not go there, and we'll see others will have a major impact on our lives and the way we operate in our environment. So revenue meets operations. So let's get cut to the chase here. Most BMCs still run revenue management and operation software in silos, right? What would happen when you wire the two together? Pricing and signals feeding, staffing, cleaning, maintenance, to the point that Jeremy made at the start of the conversation to say, hey, this has changed. And today we're still looking at that in silos. And I'm actually running I'm running an academy where we train mid to large size PMCs and talk about these. And it's actually quite interesting that the silo is very present, right? And not even in the thinking, it's like, okay, actually it has a massive correlation. And why are we not bringing these closer together? Richard, you want to go first and say, hey, viewing that from an ops side of view in relation to revenue management?
I think a classic, very classic example of this that I see is we operate 4 months out of the year and we only operate 4 months out of the year, right? And that may not necessarily be true. Maybe this year, based on demand signals, maybe how your market looks like, maybe you could really operate 5 months out of the year, right? And if revenue management understands that demand, it can feed back to ops and say, hey, we need to have a force for cleaning maintenance for 5 months of the year, right? Like all of us have maybe accepted that Greece only operates 4 months out of the year, right? But maybe that travel demand is changing. Maybe the travelers are changing, right? And so understanding that a little bit more dynamically, I think can be very, very crucial for operators. There is also, I think you touched on this briefly, but for example, PriceLabs controls things like check-in and check-out, right? Where we say, this seems like a high enough period. We don't want to do 7 days check-in, check-outs, weekday to weekday or weekend to weekend kind of check-outs, right? We want to adjust the check-in, check-out because I can drive better demand, better revenue through this, right? But that means maybe ops needs to be notified to saying, hey, you need to plan for a Thursday checkout here, or the reverse. Maybe ops notifies, which is where usually happens, right? Ops notifies to saying no Thursday checkouts, only Saturday checkouts, because that's what we can manage, right? But ultimately, if we combine the ops side and the revenue side together, ultimately that's your profit layer, right? To be able to saying, can I drive the margin layer down, margin layers, right? And through that, can I make decisions in a combined fashion, right? Now this is like a probably a pipe dream kind of a thing. I don't know if it happens, right? But I think there are opportunities in that kind of a nature, right? Like example, simple as you are going to need more cleaners this coming Saturday because it's going to be more checkouts this Saturday, right? Or this Sunday or this Monday, whatever, right? So it's possible. I think we are some ways away from it. But maybe Jeremy will open up the APIs and we do something together.
That would be my next question, Richie. Are you actually pulling Breezeway data to to leave that into your algorithm as well, because it could be significant to the point that you're making, right? I mean, I have seen a lot of revenue manager in my career, and when I ask them, like they talk about revenue management, but actually talk about yield and profitability and margin at the same time, and they say, well, we opened up the books for the weekend because we're low in bookings, and said, does it actually make sense because you have higher OpEx and you might lose money on lowering your prices, and that dynamic is just not being taken in the equation at all.
Yeah. We don't today. We operate on a fixed minimum fee model, or where you can be break even, right? But I think with connected systems, I think Jeremy would agree, right? Tech's becoming better. Our integrations, our API layers are becoming better. How we can interchange data is becoming better. Maybe we'd use blockchain in that, right? But because it's becoming better, I think over time you can see some of this happen, right? You see already in for example airlines deciding their crew schedules to demand, right? How do you decide when to fly, but also how much crew to staff on that plane, right? And hotels do this quite often, to saying, based on the occupancy, how much staffing do I need, right? At least I haven't seen it done on the STR side as much and as dynamically, but I think there is opportunity.
We're eagerly waiting, Jeremy.
Are you going to give us
Simon, Simon, this is a matchmaking. This is a live matchmaking session. I think it's great. I think property profitability analysis, I think, is really interesting. We thought so for a while, and I think operators fly really blind on what the true incremental profit of another night, another reservation is, because it's very hard for them to get any great data unless they build, at this point, unless you're very sophisticated and you build your own like kind of BI layer on top of lots of inputs, you can't really figure out whether or not home A that just takes a lot more service to prepare and turn over, or maybe it constantly has maintenance issues, whether or not that incremental reservation there or another night there is really worth it. I think it's very interesting from a staffing perspective, but I think probably a lot more of the benefit is thinking about how you combine revenue management and how you combine operations to help owners understand what's actually happening at their property, inform the profitability of your business, but then also leverage it for the owners to help understand, like, hey, this is what it actually takes to run your business. This is what we're seeing in revenue across our portfolio and across our market. Here's how your home is performing. Here's the operational burden on your home, what we're typically doing. Like, let's be a little more transparent about like the profit that we're driving and then actually the work that we're doing. Because we hear this a lot, that like owner management is like one of the biggest, like owner management where people struggle and spend so much time. I think that's changed a lot over the last couple of years, where owners are just so much more demanding. So I think part of the opportunity from revenue management and operations being together is like leveraging those tools on owner relationships as well, because there's just so much noise and misconception from owners about the work that's actually being done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point you mentioned in relation to the unit profitability. That's a topic that we have followed for years, and it's a massive challenge to get to the bottom of that for many reasons you've already pointed out, Jeremy. One of the most difficult one is cost allocation, especially fixed cost allocation is so hard. Like, how do you allocate your office cost, your whatever is out there to a single booking, and then you have to rework this cost allocation across the year because certain fixed costs are higher during the year, and then allocating those could have a direct impact on profitability on a booking, whereas your variable costs are easier to track but then you have peak cleaners, and then the cleaners come more expensive because you need to cover peaks more expensively than you cover the main workforce during normal season. So one day we will see unit profitability, but it's also been a challenge because we haven't seen the right accounting software and then building the right BI layer on top of that to make these assumptions and make these decisions. I think we have all the pieces that we need to get to unit profitability calculation, but at the end, you need to still put that together. And I think it's a matter of pressure. Obviously, during COVID, everybody started to think about profitability, and post-COVID, nobody was thinking about profitability because it was going heydays. Now revenues are softening again. Demand is maybe softening a little bit, and that will then force again us to think about how far can we get in unit profitability and how we can drive that. I think operations and revenue management are well positioned to take a lead in that because you have one of the core information to make some of these decisions as well. So let me get back into the topic that we've sort of touched before in relation to automation and creating efficiencies. If you would think which operation pieces you think could be for property managers around 100, 200 units could be automated tomorrow by using the data sets of both of your organizations, if there is anything at all.
I think while Richie's pondering, I think his commentary around staffing is really interesting, right? So not just so we do some of this to help with staffing, and I know other systems do as well, when you're looking at reservations that have already been made, right? And you're thinking like, okay, let's start to plan. But if we had a little bit more insight into the demand side for reservations that haven't yet been made to be a little more predictable, we could automate more staffing decisions in a really interesting way, right? I think that would be very interesting, the combination of that data.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's that, at least in my head, it's the staffing, it's the check in, check out, right? Aligning those to make ops less painful and more profit generating, right? And so figuring that out, I think is the answer.
So let's move on. Also in the minor of time, I've got a few other provocative questions out there. In terms of should revenue management and operation systems stay independent by design, or will PMS just swallow them up entirely anyway? Because that's something we're hearing all the time. And what sets you apart and why this is not the case, or is the case?
Okay, I'll go again.
Deep breath.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I think it is just I continue to maintain this. I just think it is a very complicated business. You are asked as a property manager, what's super interesting, right? Like if you're very small, maybe you're only an operator of one. This is very unlikely to be your full-time job, right? You are doing something else. And so your time is precious, and how well you operate and optimize different parts of what you do, as long as it can be made simple for you, is still very valuable for you, right? And you're talking about a lot of dollars if you've decided that you're basically going to self-manage your home. There's a huge spread between what you might be paying a property manager. So there's willingness, I think, through professionalization to pick and choose tools that will be very effective for you. Certainly revenue management, and I think in the future operations as well, separate from the PMS. The larger you get, the harder both of those burdens become, where there's still more reason, there's real dollars, there's real time on the line that you want to optimize that business. Will everyone do it? No, but it's a gigantic market. Will the PMS swallow it all up? I don't believe so. I think there's specialized work that needs to be done. And I think there's like data pieces of the puzzle that each individual PMS. So from Richie's perspective, and then he can answer for the ops for me. But I think like revenue management, there's so much data outside of the PMS that it's hard. And as long as the PMS stays fragmented, it's really hard for them to do as good a job as an independent provider that specializes in this can do. And for operations, it's kind of the same thing. Like it's really hard for the PMS to like own the relationship with the property and the owner and the guest and all the service providers and the people across the spectrum that you need to actually deliver on your operations. That's a pretty tall burden. And with a fragmented PMS, it becomes even harder. And I'll just say one more thing, which is like, particularly for operations, the operations lives like it's not self-contained. It's very hard to just run your operation from your computer. This is boots on the ground, activity at the property, people in the field. It's a whole nother core dynamic. It's a tough one for the PMS to take on, which is why I think we've seen that they have struggled to do it.
Jeremy said it really well, but I think um, I think of systems PMSs as like a stable system, a system of record, the connective tissue, so to speak, right? Something that operates extremely stably, right? Uh, but a system of record is generally fundamentally different from your system of intelligence / action often, right? Because you need so many more bells and whistles. You need so many other things. In terms of PriceLabs, we're shipping out new pricing models every week, right? We're shipping out updates every week. We're evaluating terabytes of data to get this done. And the core team that operates in PriceLabs is a data science team, right? So it's not a product team, it's not an engineering team. Yes, they exist, right? But it's a core data science team, right? Just fundamentally very different way of operations, right? Our whole set of teams, like our customer support team, is someone who comes from math background and can do math really well on the fly when a customer asks a question about why am I priced this way, right? Or our sales teams are built that way, right? Similarly, when I look at ops platforms like Breezeway, like there's just so much depth in terms of automation, in terms of various people that are involved within that stack, in terms of like things like you have to dispatch someone, you have to notify someone. There is a mobile app, there is something else happening. There's just so much to be built, and like Jeremy said, right, like um, there is I know there is margin compression, but there's still enough margin for you to play with, where you don't want to risk either your top line, or you don't want to risk that cleaning not happening, or that turnover not happening really well, right? Because the cost of that is really high, ultimately, right? Whether you miss out on your top line revenue, or that turnover not happening really well. And so from that perspective, I think that depth of softwares will continue to beat the breadth. Sure, there are going to be some percent of the market that would enjoy just the breadth and be superficial enough, right? But I think you'd want that depth to make sure you're delivering on your customer promise of turnover and good turnover, and then you're delivering on your top line really well.
Thank you very much. You guys played that very well together. Not even scripted. So let's wrap this up, and I want to have a few quick answers from you, also about the future. Jeremy, you and both Richie, you have backgrounds in the property management space as well. If you would run a property management company tomorrow with 500 units, how your tech stack look like?
I go, okay. I pick a great PMS, right? A pretty solid PMS that helps me run a very stable operations, right? Next, I bring in the right distribution layer, right? If the PMS has it, great. If the PMS does not have it, then maybe I need a third-party PMS system, right? A third-party channel management system, right? Then I would bring in revenue management, of course, right? Having said that, actually, I'd bring some kind of ops layer to make sure I'm cleaning, turning on, like doing the turnovers really well. Then I bring on revenue management. And then I start thinking about some of the other things that we talked about, right? If the PMS does not have solid enough guest communication, I bring in a guest communication layer. And then if depending on how my revenues are doing, maybe I'd bring in direct booking websites. If I bring direct booking websites, then I need a payment gateway, etc. And then ultimately, between all of this, you somehow need a finance stack. And if there were two technologies that I think there is a lot of opportunity for someone to build a software startup in this industry, is accounting software is still not custom made for this industry, like really well. And correct me if I'm wrong, right? But I think there's an opportunity there. And number two, this is I'm going to steal Jeremy's answer because I know he's going to say this. So he said that to me in every industry event that I've seen him for the last 5 years, maybe, or maybe at least for the last couple of years, right? Is to say there has to be something which is better at integrating data across various systems. Either the property management system does that job really well and becomes a true, for example, in marketing world, we call it the customer data platform, right? A CDP, right? And I'm not talking about CRM where you're storing.
Oh, no, of course.
Right, you're talking like the data of your operations, right? Which is maybe built on blockchain, but like what's happening on your cleaning staff side, what's happening on your turnover side, what's happening on your revenue management side, what's happening on your reservation side, maybe owner statements, maybe something else, right? Like what about your marketing website? Where is that data going in? Just that single data platform. I think there is an opportunity for someone to architect that and think about that, right? So if that existed, then I'd maybe pick my tech stack a little differently. But for now, the answer that I gave earlier is my tech stack.
So Jeremy, I think Richie just saved you from answering that question because I don't think there is that much more to add. And I don't want to take this on for too long. So we want to close with a rapid fire here as well. But you said it, I think, boys, make the data exchange happen. We all want it and we want to see it tomorrow. And we need to make that data more available to make smarter decisions within the short-term rental industry. And this is not just what the data is out there readily available. It's data that comes from the operation, helps us benchmark and improve the efficiencies and the professionalism of our industry. And there's so much data there that currently is not available. And Breezeway sits on a ton of it. And I've keep working on Jeremy for the last 5 years and I have not succeeded yet, but I'm sure I'll get there eventually. Anyway, so rapid fire here, 90 seconds. I'll start with Richie first, and then I'll do with Jeremy. So Jeremy has a heads up here. He can think a little bit longer. So Richie, starting off. OTA of the future, Airbnb, Booking, Expedia, or someone else?
Some LLM model.
North Star for PMCs in 2026, growth or profitability?
Growth.
AI in STR today, hype or game changer?
What Jeremy said, the technology is game changer, the tools are hype.
Pick one, global scale or local expertise?
For
PMCs.
Local expertise.
Most overrated buzzword in short-term rental right now?
Oh my God. All-in-one solution.
All-in-one solutions. One KPI you'd remove from operator dashboards forever?
Operator dashboards? Oh, I'm not sure I can answer that. Really.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
If you could merge one tool category into another to reduce complexity, which?
I think guest communication and PMS.
So, Jeremy, you had heads up already. You could just go straight into it. OTA of the future, Airbnb, Booking, Expedia, or someone else?
Airbnb.
North Star for PMCs in 2026, growth or profitability?
Growth.
AI in STR today, hype or game changer?
Future game changer. Hype today.
Pick one, global scale or local expertise?
Local expertise.
Most overrated buzzword in short-term rental today?
PMS.
One KPI you'd remove from operator dashboards forever?
Pass. Call friend.
If you could merge one tool category into another to reduce complexity, which?
Oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble. Locks and ops.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was a great pleasure. Richie from India, Jeremy from Boston, to have you both on the STR Global Unlocked today. It was a great pleasure. Thank you for all your super valuable input. I hope the audience enjoyed our recording today. Please follow us, and you can see the downloads of the podcast on all the podcast technologies, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, and the rest. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to having you back at the next episode. Thank you, Richie. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was STR Global Unlocked, where we say what others won't. If you got value from today's episode, send it to someone who is still playing it safe. Follow the show and get more global insight at ajlatelier.com. The globally recognized STR consultancy I founded and that proudly brings to you this show. More bold conversations are on the way, so stay tuned.